Hello, my name is Justin Gold. I'm one of the student organizers of the Sloan Sports Analytics Conference, and it's my pleasure to introduce Beyond the Foundation, Building a Team Around the Superstar. We have Jackie McMullen as our moderator. She's a senior analyst and writer at ESPN. We have David Griffin, the general manager of the Cleveland Cavaliers. We have Bob Myers, the general manager and president of basketball operations for the Golden State Warriors. We have Masai Ujiri, the general manager for the Toronto Raptors. And we have Luis Scola, a professional basketball player. Please send tweets to Beyond Superstar with any questions. And let's give this panel a round of applause.
All right, everybody, hang in there. Last panel of the day. Yeah, everybody's had a cup of tea or coffee. Good. So welcome to a really, really great panel, I think. Bob, I'm going to start with you. We're talking about building around a superstar. And each one of these have had the opportunity to do that. Bob, you got a superstar on the fly last July. And, but we all know in the business that the groundwork to have the room and the space to sign Kevin Durant starts a lot sooner than last July. Can you just take us through how far back were you talking about Kevin Durant?
Not as far as you think.
Okay.
The reason why is, we had won a championship 2 years ago. We were hopeful to win one last year until that didn't happen. I'm glad my guy got it though. So I was very, very focused on last year's team, and you just don't know in this business, and I've been in the business as an agent and now on this side.
Right.
What you do learn is the unpredictability of it, and you can plan for something, but when you do it at the detriment of what's going on in the present, it sometimes, to me, is a miscalculation, because so much of what we deal with is happening right now. And it changes. We had an injury to Kevin.
Right.
It changes. Everything changes. When the year we beat Cleveland, they had injuries in the final or in the playoffs. Steph got injured last year. All this stuff is so fluid. So when you plan things, I think what you do, or what we do, is you prepare for different options. That option, getting Kevin, I did not believe was a plausible one, to be honest. So as far as time spent on it, it wasn't as much as people think. But a better story is when we signed Iguodala. We didn't plan for that at all, but what I learned in that process of free agency, and what I have learned over the years, is if you get an opportunity to sign an impact player, forget about Kevin, any impact player in free agency, you can do it. And it doesn't take as much planning. You use picks to move players. You use cap space to move players. All this stuff is manageable, and I learned that more with Andre, because when we sat down to meet with Andre Iguodala, we had no cap space. We were over the cap. We had a player at his position. There was no reason why he should have been a target, but we felt like we could add a really good player, and we figured out how to do it. So planning is important, but you'd be surprised at finite planning, maybe not the best way to go. At least that's what I figured out.
Well, that's kind of interesting, because I think, obviously, there was a cap spike.
Yeah.
We all knew that. It was going to be about $25 million, which is about what it was. So there were plenty of teams, whether it was Kevin Durant or whomever else, you could plan cautiously for that. But doesn't some of it, and I'll go to Masai here, you have players that you can exercise your option on. Maybe you wait a year before you do that. So you have the space for a player that you might want to bring on?
Yes, and I completely agree with Bob. I think you plan and you have all these scenarios you have on your team, but you really have to operate on the fly a lot of times, because there are some guys you don't know are going to be available. But when you're talking about the bigger players and the big picture, yes, you plan a little bit, but so many other things control. Our business is incredible. When we talk about injuries, we talk about instability sometimes of players, we talk about different movements, and sometimes even a player going to Kevin Durant going to Golden State will totally change, like how you think about what you're doing with your team. And so with us, we have taken this unique path of maybe trying to develop players as we try to win too. So you have to almost make a commitment of what does this team deserve? So we try to get a player like Ibaka or PJ Tucker to help the team now. And then you have to think ahead of the summer, because at some point I have to go to the owner and say, hey,
Well, that's what's
we got to spend some money here.
Right, so you give up a first-round pick for Ibaka, who can walk at the end of this year.
Yes, those are the risks you take, like in this business. But the things we do, like you build relationships, and you try to figure out sometimes what the market is, and those are our jobs. We have to take risks, and they happen every single day. They are always coming, and you also have to build a culture and a structure that, when you have the confidence that when these players come, they're going to believe in what you do. We at Scola, we believe, and I'm sure it's with almost with every team, the culture and the foundation you've built has to be strong, and you have to believe in everything from ownership to coaches to players to your surroundings. Practice facilities, whatever it is, you have to lay that foundation where you have the confidence that this player is going to stay.
So David, how difficult is that? Now you came in as the permanent GM, you were interim and then the permanent GM, and we were just talking backstage, and there was this idea that maybe LeBron might come back. How fervently did you believe that? You didn't even have time to lay the groundwork. You had just taken over the job. And talk about a seismic shift in the placement of the league.
Yeah, I don't think we thought it was even feasible at that particular juncture. I think what we kind of thought he would do is spend one more year where he was and then see if we could be productive over the course of that year and see if he could buy into what we were doing. We really didn't anticipate it would happen that quickly. But having been there before as an assistant, I got there in September after LeBron had left in July. And it was a little bit like jumping into a burning building.
I bet.
But it also gave us carte blanche to do what we needed to do to plan long term. And we got to take some risk at that time, and we got to do some things where we made a trade with the Clippers where we got a pick that ultimately became Kyrie Irving. And we were able to do some things where, very similar to what Oklahoma City had done before, I think Philadelphia started trying to do some of this as well, where they build through the draft. We got to do that for a while, and we got to accumulate assets that way. And because we did, we also got to grow our culture and try to develop players and do some of those things. So by the time he came back, it was like we had to flip a switch and be a totally different organization at that point.
Almost overnight.
And that's difficult. That's what you don't plan for. So what they said, you have to adapt, and you have to be able to move on the fly a little bit. And I think we were blessed that the nature of LeBron is that he makes everybody better.
Right.
So everything that you put around him ends up helping the cause. That's really because of him. But it also meant that we had to do some things like go much deeper into the cap and let Dan Gilbert know we were going to set records with how much money we spent.
And continue to set.
Because there's no way to do it. You don't go from 0 to 100 in our league in a way that makes sense. You have to do it in a way that you can capitalize on the window you have. So that's where we were at that point, and fortunately we were able to see it to fruition last year, and the first year obviously we came up short.
So I want to follow up with you because you talked about that window. So you get LeBron, and then you make a major decision. You trade the draft rights to Andrew Wiggins to get Kevin Love. So that's a win now decision. How do you weigh those things? I mean, Andrew Wiggins may turn out to be a star. I don't think anyone in Cleveland's going to care because you won a championship. But how do you weigh those things? And is that something that you talked to LeBron about in advance of the decision you made?
Well, I think everything's a cost-benefit analysis of what you're doing. Right. Moving Andrew Wiggins wasn't something we were excited about doing, but the player we got, we believed was a great fit with LeBron, and he's turned out to be an all-star again, so we were grateful for that. But these guys have done the same thing. I mean, they've done a really good job of putting pieces together that fit. I call Golden State a joy engine. I've worked with Steve Kerr. You see what those guys do and the spirit with what with which they do it, it attracts people to want to be there. Masai is considered one of the best general managers in the league, and the culture that they've built there is special, and people want to be there. And that's not easy to get people to want to go to Canada. It's not easy to get people to want to go to Cleveland. It's not. I mean, it's difficult in the league. Those are places that used to be hard to attract players.
No, you're absolutely right.
Because Masai's there, he doesn't have to worry about that. What they've built will speak for itself. And LeBron probably speaks for us to a great degree, but
more than you'd probably like, I would
well,
imagine.
no, I think it's good, actually. It's a positive for us because he represents what we want to be about.
Right.
But I do think you have to capitalize on the opportunities you have, and Kevin wanted to be a big part of what we were doing, and fortunately it came together the right way.
So we're talking about culture, Luis, and you've played on a bunch of great teams. You're a national hero in your own country. You've played with Yao, you've played with Tracy McGrady, Kyle Lowry, all these guys. This culture that all these GMs are talking about, how evident is that to the players, and how much does it matter to you?
It matters a lot. I was listening to Masai, what he was saying about the culture in Toronto, and I agree with him. And there's other examples too. It is important. You want to go to a place in which you can feel comfortable and you can work, and you know there's a whole structure, and everything is not going to change at deadline or in the summer completely, and next year you're going to be having a miserable year because of movements and instability. Toronto was a great team and it got a great perception. San Antonio, I think, is a blueprint of that. They've been doing it for whatever years, 20 years, 15 years, whatever years. And they've been feeding of players that got waived on other teams and they went there for the minimal, and players who keep getting pay cuts to play on that team. Even their own superstars keep getting pay cuts so they can stay on that team and they can continue to build all that. And that's only because of the culture they got as a team, not only the basketball part, but outside the basketball part, and everything they promote and everything they do. That's so appealing for players. Players want to be there, want to be in a place like that in which they feel they can perform, they can play, and they can be happy while also winning, which is the most important part. And like I said, Toronto was a great place, and San Antonio is probably the blueprint of that. Is the team that teaches all how it's done.
So you've played alongside a lot of superstars, Manu included in Argentina. What in your mind makes a good superstar teammate? What do you want your superstar on your team? If you're playing next to him, what do you want him to give your team? What do you want from him?
Well, you need a superstar, obviously. You can't win without them. You need today probably more than one.
Right.
And to be a superstar, you need to have a whole bunch of special abilities. You have to be a special guy. You got to be the best. You are one of the best in the world or something, so competitive like basketball. So it has to be a special package of ability you have, and probably it will be a special package of bad things you have too. They bring along. It will be a trade-off. You have to deal with some stuff that you don't want to deal. It'll be some of them that are extremely high maintenance. There will be some of them that are extremely bad teammates. Some of them are and some of them are the other. They're very nice. They're very good teammates. They want to be around you. They're low maintenance. To me, and knowing that that's going to be the case, and you have to be able to deal with something, there will be some bad stuff with it. What I will want from the start is those that play hard every day. There's some guys that they just don't do that as much as you want them to do it, and there's some other guys that they can do all kind of stuff before and after the game, but when the game starts, they just play hard every game, and they push you and they push everybody, and it's like constantly pushing forward towards the championship. That is what they ultimately want to get. That's what I want from my superstar. That's what I want to have. Everything else I can deal with it. I'm okay as long as you play hard every day.
So I would ask all of you the same question, I think, to a certain degree. When you take on a superstar that's going to get all the credit if you win, and usually quite a bit of the blame if you don't win. It always ends up that way. The best players are going to get all the credit and all the blame if it doesn't go well. What's the relationship? For instance, I'm going to say that I think LeBron overstepped recently when your team was losing a little bit, and he started complaining about, well, we need more people, we got to get more guys, we're not. And I thought the response from your team was great. It was pretty strong. Hey, that's not the way we do this. How difficult are those conversations to have when a player's the face of your franchise.
With LeBron, they're really not.
Okay.
He's an incredibly coachable person. He wants you to tell him what he needs to know. He wants to get better in all phases. So I think when we had the conversation that we had, while I was using a little more colorful language than I am now, it was well received because he wants to do the right thing. And he knows that I think by doing what he did, he may have made it more difficult to achieve what he ultimately wants to achieve. And the blessing we have, and I know these guys are the same, our stars are the guys that care the most about winning. And they set the example for everybody else. They play the hardest, to Luis's point. LeBron does that. Kyrie does that. And so when you start with they're about the right thing, they may get outside the lines. They may do some things that publicly people perceive as being a negative. But for us, because they're about the right thing, it's really voicing the passion that he has for winning. And we embrace that. We really do. I'd like to see more players be more vocal in that way, because at least you know that they're about the team and about where we're trying to go.
Yeah, you know, I think one thing about it, like Luis said, the players, it's their season. I've always challenged our players, our superstars. It's your career. It's your champion. It's not my champion. I don't walk around like I won a championship. I didn't play in the game. All I did was, and my group of people, help put a team together to help those guys win. And when you challenge a superstar or anybody on your team and they step out of line or they do something well and you compliment them, in any conversation, what I say is, what do you want? What do you think it takes to win a championship? Because you only get so many years to do it. It's your life. After you're done playing and Luis is close, you can't play anymore. That's it. You have 10 years, you have 15, you have 12. And if you're a superstar, the pressure now to win a championship is tremendous. The emphasis we put on a championship is insane to me. How we value it or devalue it if you don't have one. So these players, these superstars, are under tremendous pressure to check that box. So if they're the right-minded type of people, which superstars usually are, they can accept that challenge and they can say, yeah, what do you think I should do? Or what do you think the team needs? So you have a conversation with them. But the best relationship is when a player or a superstar takes ownership of it and says, I need to play hard every night. I need to lead this team. When someone steps out of line, I need to lead by example. I need to lead by action. And you know what? I might feel a certain way, but I need to tell this teammate that they're not playing hard. And that's not an easy conversation to have, but that's my responsibility because that's going to help us win a championship. And Luis references the Spurs. What a fascinating organization, because they have one thing they care about. One thing. It's winning. That is it. It's not ego. It's not statistics. It's not recognition. It's not ticket sale. It's winning. That's it. And sometimes we get lost in all the other things. Trust me, our team gets a ton of scrutiny. And if you read the media every day, I don't know where winning comes in there. It's all these other stories. But if you focus on winning, and you get your superstars, like you mentioned, you get a guy that all he cares about is winning. You got guys like that. I mean, any team that's successful, there's people on their team that are driving that agenda. And so you have that conversation with the guys, and you challenge them. What do you want to do? Most of our guys, they've made a lot of money. They don't need any more money. We got 2 guys with shoe deals that pay them more than we pay them.
Right.
They work for us they work for a shoe company. Same as you. What do you want to do? You got money, you got fame, you got endorsements. What do you want to do? There's only one thing that should matter, and that's the conversation you have. It's winning. Right. And it has to matter more than you guys can even understand. It has to matter more than anything. And you play with guys like that, and you're around guys like that. And you talk about the negative characteristics of a superstar. Sometimes it's uncomfortable to be around these people, but that's what it takes. You guys got, if you're local, Tom Brady, unbelievable mental strength to do what he's done. I'm sure sometimes when he's in the huddle, he's going right at his wide receiver or his offensive lineman that got called for holding, because all he cares about is winning the Super Bowl. And it shows, and he does, by the way, he gets it done.
So when you're going after Kevin Durant, I'm sure Steph Curry knows you're going after Kevin Durant. He's your resident superstar, if you will. What kind of conversations, do you feel compelled to have any conversation at all with Steph about?
That time, yes, because if Steph Curry, a superstar, if you want to, I don't even like saying that word, but let's just say for this
Great player.
we're using it.
Mega star.
Yeah.
Panel is canceled.
Hey, I'm telling you, you can put her, us, him, me, him, and LeBron right here. It equals playoffs right there.
So what do you call that?
Hey, he'll protect the rim for us.
I think that in a situation like that,
Right.
a superstar or whatever is a little bit like your star, if we're up on stage, is probably the lead singer in the band, right? He's probably John Lennon, whoever you want to use. And now you're saying, will you let another guy share vocals with you in a way? Because who's playing the guitar and who's playing the drum, that's really important too. You're talking about a lead singer, you got to ask that question and you got to respect the answer. Fortunately, like I talk about winning, Steph Curry, he's a different kind of, and I credit this to, he grew up in the NBA. His dad played in the NBA.
Right.
I get he gets a lot of attention and accolades individually. He was two-time MVP. He just wants to win. When you get to a certain point, like I said, and he looked at it very simply, will we be better with Kevin Durant or without Kevin? Well, he thinks and we think we'd be better. And so that was the conversation. If he had said, I don't want him on the team, I think it might have spoke to less than win. The goal would have been different than winning. You understand? Like if you say we don't want a guy like that on your team, well, there's another. It can't be because you don't want to win. What's the real reason then? It's ego, or it's a different reason. So yeah, that time you ask. But like you said, if it's clear that it heads towards winning, everybody in the organization should accept that. I think.
I think, Jackie, another thing I think we should consider with this, I know it's media. George Carr used to come into my office. I told these guys this. He used to come into my office every training camp, and he would say, I get 8 fuck-ups. I get 8 fuck-ups this year. And I'm like, what? Sorry, I'm not allowed
Did it again. Fine. You're getting fined.
Don't
I'm
tell the
trying not to say
NBA that I use that word.
Nobody here they'll never find out.
Save the man some money. Don't tweet that
No,
out.
please save me some money, because I've spent a lot of money. Anyway.
Sorry, I can't believe you just did that.
So he'd come and tell me, yes, I get this, I need 8. And for what? Well, we talk to the media so much every day, every single practice we're talking to the media. And I get that with our players. It happened with our players a couple weeks ago where DeMar said we need something new, or Kyle said something has to change or something. It's constant with them. It's every day. People are asking them this, and I think sometimes they are gonna say something different. I think that's we should expect that. They are human beings too, and sometimes they are going to get frustrated too. And that's for me, for superstars to come out and say their minds. It's one thing, and it's what I loved about what Bob said. It's all about winning. It's all about winning in this league and in sports. We play sports to win. I know there's branding, shoes, all that stuff, but winning is why we play. And if the guys on your team respect that, know that this is where we're going and this is what you want to do, I see it with our guys, and yeah, there are levels, and you hope that you can take it to the highest level. But when I look at Kyle's eyes, I see winning. They want to win. Every day they want to play, they want to win. Whether it's in practice and how they compete, like he sees it, they want to win.
Right. You
see it with him. He comes into. At some point, we had to say, Scola, you're 67 years old. You can't lift weights every fucking day. I think we had that conversation, but that's winning.
Right.
You want guys that will win in your program, and we're glad to have guys like Scola or the guys that these guys have. It's an incredible league.
So I want to ask you a little bit about Kyle Lowry, because I think he's one of those sneaky great players that just continues, for some reason, to go under the radar. I mean, he's I just looked at it before I came in. He's top 5 in real plus minus. He's in the top 20 of player efficiency rating. He's a legitimate star, but somehow he never quite gets his due from the public. I'm sure he does from your team. And so I'm wondering, he wants to win, that's obvious, but he's also human. And are there times when he's like, well, what do I have to do to be considered among these great players in my game? Is that stuff you run up against?
Yeah, well, there's how do you find superstars? There are some that like it's just glaring that yes, these guys are superstars. There are some that whether it's Kyle Lowry was drafted 22 or whatever it was. If we knew Kawhi Leonard was a superstar, he'd be drafted number 1.
Right.
Curry was 8 or something. There are so many. You can go on and on. Jimmy Butler. Yeah, so there are different ways of finding them, and sometimes we act like we're the smartest guys in the world. Like there is a little bit of luck in this business, by the way, because when I took the job in Toronto, we were looking to see which way we would go. And at one point we were trying to trade some of these guys, and we made a big trade with Rudy Gay, and I went to Europe, honestly, and was thinking, you know what, we're going to lose so many games now, and we're going the other way, and teams were calling about Kyle Lowry, and we were talking about that. A good thing is I think we built a relationship where you talk to the player about it, but I credit my analytics guys too with the work that they did on Kyle. Unbelievable, because they painted a picture of a player that has truly come to life. It's incredible, the work that they've done, and I kept saying, show me, tell me, show me how, and he gradually grows and grows, and DeMar gradually grows. We don't play the prettiest of basketball sometimes, and we play maybe it's not conventional with shooting threes and all that, but we try to figure out a way to build around him. With Kyle, and he's just continued to grow. The one thing I know Luis will say too is competitive, wanting to win. When it boils down to everything, you can say anything you want, the kid wants to win. And with the things that happen off the court, he just said, I'm going to be better. I'm going to be better. People perceive me to be this kind of person or another kind of person. I'm going to concentrate on basketball. I'm going to make my body better, and I want to win. And that is what has helped us.
I think one thing that really played into, certainly from Kyle from afar, and I think plays into it for a lot of guys that become superstars that were drafted later, I think there's a chip on your shoulder that you develop in that situation, and that drives you to a level that a lot of people don't have. Steve Nash was back-to-back MVP at one point, and he was the 15th pick in a draft.
Got traded.
And Steve had that kind of, and we call it fuck you and want to, but he had that.
Oh, there's a fine for you, David.
Okay, don't get me fined either, but if you do, say Masai said it. But he had a will about himself that I think came from everything that had happened in his career to that point. And so I think that's part of what's made Kyle so incredibly good. I think the injuries that Steph had to overcome are part of what made him so incredibly good. Something changes throughout your career that you adapt to as a player, and your ability to overcome that adversity is part of what's going to define the career you have. The fact that Luis was trying to lift weights and Masai's telling him he's got to slow down, Luis has had the career he's had because he works that hard and it matters that much to him.
Sure.
Yeah, if you could measure, if there was a tool to measure that competitive, if I could talk to you or give you a 10-minute test and find out how competitive you are, that is invaluable.
I bet I'd beat you.
I don't know. We'll see about that.
See what I did there, Bob?
You know what? Yeah, I know. And it's not liking to win. It's hating to lose.
Right.
That's what competitive. You know why? Think about this. When you are competing, or whatever you guys do to compete, whatever we do, you compete in some area of your life. If you're not, you should, because competition is great. It's good for all of us. But when you are in a moment, an intense moment in competition, the thing that drives you to degrees and depths you don't know you have, what you're trying to do is avoid that feeling of losing. You're not trying to feel the joy of winning. That's celebrated. And all that. What you're trying to do is, I cannot stand what it is like to lose so much that I'm going to dig down and do every single thing possible to avoid that. It's a guy, you talk about, you guys, we all got guys like that, and you don't win without people like that. And that's what drives you to win. That's what drives you. It's, I cannot picture myself after losing this game, this series, this competition, because I know what that feels like, and I have to avoid it. Because it's that strength that pushes you. And I don't know if Luis, if I wish it was more of, yes, we won, then no, we avoided losing. That's what we did. So I don't feel bad like that. But I think that's a common thread in successful people. I don't know that it makes the best dinner partners.
Well, I was going to say, I think sometimes that drives, so I remember covering Irv and Magic Johnson, they would have scrimmages at the end of practice, and if his team lost, he'd be like, nope, we're going again. And they're all like, we're really tired and we need to go home. And he's like, no, we're going again. And they're going to go again till his team wins, because, so sometimes losing with these great stars can be a negative sometimes, because that what you're talking about, that I can't lose. That causes emotions. It can cause some discord.
Right.
It can
But winning is uncomfortable. It's hard. It's difficult because everybody wants to do it. If it would be easy, everybody would be doing it. It just takes a lot of effort, a lot of thinking. It's uncomfortable. It's not fun. When people talk about teams with good chemistry is after you won. On the process, it's so rough. There's nothing fun about it.
So now you've just come from Brooklyn, and we know that they're trying to establish a culture there, and they have, in my mind, the right coach and the right GM in Kenny Atkinson and Sean Marks, but they have no draft picks. I think you guys the team just recently lost 16 in a row. So when you're around young players, and here you're a great veteran, they were so happy to have you be part of that. How do you create a positive culture when you can't get this? How can you get team chemistry, as you say, if you can't win games?
It's difficult. It's very difficult. And you can see more of those problems in teams when nobody has won. And when you have a team that a lot of players won, that creates, it's like, it's addictive. And players, they behave in a completely different way. The whole culture of the team, the whole day by day of the team, the way people act, it's completely different, and it's hard to teach. You tell the players that, but they need to live it. They need to go through that to understand really what's going on. Back to Kaz. Kaz, to me, is a special case because I got a chance to play with him very early in his career in Houston. He was doing great, but nobody expected him was going to become what he's now. He was with a chip on the shoulder, like somebody says here in the panel. But also he get to a point that it was unbelievable. I remember myself being in the team and watching him play, and I was thinking, I will do anything for that guy. What can I do to make his life 1% easier, to help him make one more point? Anything we should do on this team should be on how can we help him. He's taking us everywhere.
So that's it right there, isn't it?
Yeah, and once you're superstars and you get that attention from your teammates, that's what you're looking for, because obviously you need the other guys too. The difference between the superstars and the other guys is that the other guys could be anybody. The superstar is just 3 players, 4 players in the whole world, but then you still need 4 other players or 3 other players or the bench. You still need them, and you need them to do this for you. And when you get to that point, in which we were with Kyle last year and with DeMar last year, and I've been in other teams with another stars, that's what you want. You want all the other players to understand that and die for that guy. That's I think the highest point of the highest challenge for a superstar.
I'm going to ask each one of you to give me an example, a specific example of your star and a great show of leadership that made a huge difference in your team succeeding. You can do that.
You want to go first?
Go ahead.
Well, we lost in the finals last year.
Did.
And Draymond got suspended. So I got asked this question: was there any resentment towards him from our team, coach, anybody? And I answered the question that when your season's over, we have exit interviews. And what that, Luis, we all know. Maybe the day after, or 2 days after, whatever. You sit there and you sit in your office and the players come in one by one and you basically download the season. Ours happened to be 14 hours after we lost Game 7 of the finals at home. So I was sitting there with all our players, and when you're sitting with a player by yourself, it's a private conversation, but you get the most honest information, more than you would get after a practice or in a group of people. And what I found was no one, not one person, expressed any resentment or blame for Draymond being suspended or anything. By the way, anybody. And I think when you can develop a group of people, including Steph, including whoever, like I said, superstar, whoever that might be, I think in that moment, I realized that when everybody's pulling in the same direction, superstar, role guy, second best player, third best guy, when you're all pulling in the same direction, and that is towards winning, you have a good thing. And people ask, how did you get over losing in the finals with the 3-1 lead? It's that day after, looking at the people saying, you know what? I will lose with these guys, or we can lose together because of the fabric is strong enough, and it's good enough. And if we had a superstar, everybody at that time would say, clearly it's Steph. For a superstar to not blame is really important. So in that moment, could Steph have said something like, well, if he hadn't been suspended? Not only did he not say that, and he never said that, he went so far as to say, you know what? I got to be better. I got to be better. That's how you build sustained success. You look in the mirror, you don't look out the window. So that's an example of a superstar taking accountability, not laying blame, and setting a tone. If your best player, if your star starts blaming people, you can better believe everybody else is going to start blaming people. But if your star decides to be accountable, to decide to take things on himself, then you've got a really good chance to do some really good things.
So your team's down 3-1.
Yeah, so that was something for us that I think it was a weird sensation, because despite the fact that we were down 3-1, everybody was still really confident. And I think it's because of the presence of LeBron. Masai's absolutely right. This panel with LeBron makes the playoffs. That's how it's supposed to work.
I'm excited. I want that chair.
And because of that, what Bob said is also true. I didn't feel a great sense of joy over winning. I felt grateful that we hadn't messed it up. That we had found a way to capitalize on the opportunity we had, because you really are more caught up in what the downside could be. But when we were down 3-1, there was still incredible confidence, and it was based on the presence of LeBron, I'm sure, to a huge degree. Kyrie really believes in himself to a high degree as well, and has come to realize that when he plays both ends of the floor, we're really, really difficult to beat. So he was recognizing that in the course of the series. But for LeBron, it was the playoffs before that for me, where like that moment that was sort of transcendent and the leader he really was. We were already injured. Kevin and Kyrie were both injured. And we played a game late in the Chicago series where LeBron steps on someone's foot and lays his ankle all the way down on the ground in the middle of the play. And his ankle literally slams against the floor. And there's a timeout, and Mike Mancias, one of our trainers who works specifically with LeBron, runs back into the back to grab something. And I said, is LeBron okay? And he looks at the time on the clock and he says, yeah, he doesn't have a choice. He's fine. That's LeBron's mentality. I don't get to be hurt. We're already injured. I can't possibly be injured. And guys watched him do some things that are almost superhuman physically throughout that finals run. And one of the most powerful things I've ever heard from a player on a team was when Kyrie told me, once we made it to the finals, he said, you don't really understand how good he is until you get to sit here and watch it. And then you really understand how special he is. And to me, that was a really powerful statement, because Kyrie's a star in his own right, has a shoe contract in his own right. And for him to recognize that amount of greatness in LeBron spoke volumes to me. And I think because he had that moment of clarity and understanding, I think it really helped him sort of just give himself to and dedicate himself to what Luis said. How do we get everything we can out of this? How do I give 1% more? And so that moment was pretty transcendent for us as a group.
Mine is, sorry, not as, maybe not as cool as this guy's.
Mine wasn't cool.
But I remember this is when I really figured Kyle is really turning it around. And there are two moments I'll tell you guys. We had a player, you guys all know him, Landry Fields, and he had a problem with the nerve. I think I can talk about this now because I think he's not playing anymore. It was incredible person, incredible guy. I felt like unbelievable player, and just had this issue with with a nerve in his hand and could not shoot, and his hand would kind of crumble up like that, when he got tired. And Landry battled it, and he was on our team 3 years ago. And you could tell, he wasn't playing that much, because of this issue. We had seen so many specialists, and it came a time where he had to play because he was good defensively, and he had to play at the time. We were making this little run, and Kyle does this crossover and crucial time of a game, and he kicks the ball out to Landry Fields, the three-point line, and Landry takes the three, and everybody in the whole gym and everybody feels that it's not going in, because of the situation, and the ball swooshes in, and Kyle goes crazy. He just goes nuts. He goes crazy with everything, and we text at the end of after the game, and what he said was very, it moved me to know that the kid is going a different direction, because he said that was one of the most special moments he's had in a game, because Landry Fields made that three. And you could tell he was going, Kyle was thinking the right way, and he wants to win, but he was also rooting for his teammates in a big way. I think Kyle and DeMar coming back to the gym during the playoffs at 10:30 at night or whatever it was, and it's not like they're shooting 800 jumpers or anything like that, but it's that time spent, both of them talking, and you a couple times I'd go to the gym just to, to see it, and you see them at midnight, we're playing the next day, you see them at midnight there, they've shot around, they're trying to do things that they feel, will help them in the next game. To me, those were special moments, because that they care, they really want to win, and they want to figure out a way to win. And by the way, it was at a time when both of them were struggling against Indiana, and they were trying to figure it out. So I think those times, you can tell with some of these players that, they're trying to get over the hump. They're really trying to win, and that's the goal.
So when you have these great players, which all three of you do, and you've all had some injuries, really unfortunate injuries, as we head now.
I know you guys you timed it really well, every single team here has a major
Making me a little nervous, actually. But when you have that, each of you, I am assuming, have a window. We used to talk about this a lot in Boston, with Pierce Garnett and Ray Allen. The window's closing, the window's closing. Well, they played 3 years beyond the alleged window, but the time is now. I don't want to put words into your mouth, but I'm going to assume you have these players in the primes of their career. The time is now, and it seems like sometimes you have to mortgage the future a little bit for that. So you just made a deal for Kyle Korver where you had to give up a pick. We were joking, you don't have any picks for eternity time. But can you talk a little bit about the idea of you've got this superstar now, we've built around him, and we need to keep doing whatever we need to do now to make sure we maximize this great player that we have, right?
Yeah, so we were talking earlier. We have a scout, Chico Averbuck, who works for us on the college side, and he had just been in town. Everybody had been in town for a couple days as we were going over the draft, probably 3 days before we traded for Kyle. And Chico was adamant that we get rid of every pick we have. Do everything you can, unload every asset you possibly can, get rid of every second-round pick, trade every first-round pick if you want to. We got to win. We got to win right now. This is all that matters. And for somebody whose job is drafting players,
right, to find the next guy.
It wasn't a statement really in his own self-interest, but it was interesting that he was so passionate about what he viewed as the window that we had. We've been really, really blessed. Ownership invest in this at the absolute highest level. They almost dare us to spend more money along the way. When we made,
you're in the lead by quite a bit.
Yeah, we are. We're winning something. So, Channing Frye last year was a trade we made, and we gave up a first in that deal as well, and we moved Anderson Varejão's contract.
Right.
And the way the deal took place was we actually had made 2 separate deals, and when we were done with the first part of the deal, Anderson Varejão alone, moving him out, had saved us at that point. It would have all in with taxes been $72 million over the life of his deal. And our owner's on the phone and we tell him, we don't have to trade this pick for Channing. We're all comfortable if we stop here. It's $72 million. And Dan was adamant that we trade the pick because if Channing is accretive to the group and he's going to help us win, that's what I'm spending the money I'm spending for. I'm not spending it to save $72 million. I'm spending it to win. And so when you have ownership that says that and puts you in a position to do that, if you can get everything that we get from the bandwidth of our analytics group, and our salary cap people have literally invented cap space throughout this process, you owe it to all of them to do everything you can to win within this window. Because we're only going to be remembered as having tarnished LeBron's legacy. We're not going to be remembered for being part of building it. We've been given like a sacred trust in this guy, and it's our job to win right now. And everyone feels that. Ownership feels that. Ownership invests in it. And so when you have that amount of clarity, it makes doing things like trading protected first make sense. It may not look good on the books moving forward, and people may look at it and say, oh my God, they've mortgaged their future. Well, if LeBron and Kyrie and Kevin are gone and we become a lottery pick, we'll have those picks because they're protected.
Protected, right.
So.
And Bob, same question. It cost you actually players to sign Durant. You lost all your big guys basically.
Yeah.
Spade.
It's all, yeah.
Yeah.
You want to answer that? I don't know. I don't know. All this stuff we do is so, sometimes we're right, sometimes we're wrong. It's the immediate grading of anything. You can look good, you can look bad. We didn't have a pick this year, but you do this long enough. I probably haven't done it long enough, but at the end of it, you look back and some things you should have done that you didn't do work out, and vice versa. But
can you give us one?
No, we do everything perfectly right. No, I don't know off the top of my head. It's hard. I'll get back to you. I'll tell you in the back. But yeah, for the question of winning now, we're trying to win now. They're trying to win. Everybody, I think us three are trying to win now. And you use all the tools you can to do that. It's free agency, that's the trade deadline, that's buyouts, that's draft picks. But with you're realistic about your window. That's the truth. Especially if you're close to winning, if you're in that contending category, it's cutthroat. It's every other team's doing it. They're getting better. They want to win too. So we didn't have a pick this year. We did that. We gave up 2 firsts to get Iguodala,
right,
to move a bunch of money. So that worked at the time. So it's you got to pick your spots though, because I think first-round picks now are becoming almost more valuable in trade. So for us going forward, we have all our first-round picks. So there'll be these guys did deals, and you protect your picks and do everything, but you never know. There's many times where deals are put out there, and the team will say, "Well, we need a first." You kind of save it for that day. But
I'm sure the Celtics can lend you some. They have like 45.
They have so many picks. They got everything. They got players, picks. But yeah, it's everybody's trying, and it's we do the same thing. We just don't have a pick to trade this year.
All right, we're going to take some questions, but just quickly, just give me a number. How long's your window?
I didn't hear.
Window. How long is your window?
Well, I'm not going to be quick, Jackie. No. What's the definition of a superstar? So I think they win 50 games or more, right? They advance in playoffs, and they sell out the arena, right? We look at our team and you feel sometimes, like, where are you? We've tried to develop players. I think these players have done that. They've won 50 games, they've advanced, and DeMar and Kyle, and they sell out the arena 100 plus games in a row. So they deserve, I think, the chance for us to add and maybe make sacrifices. So window, I don't know, could be 3 months, could be 3 years. That's the instinct you have to work with in our business. And the fine line I work with is developing and winning, and it's sometimes it's difficult and stupid to do.
All right, so we'll take a couple of questions here. While team building, how do you push back against ideas or demands that your superstar might have that you disagree with?
I'll take this one.
That's my man.
I don't, and I wanted to touch on this before too, when you asked the question of talking to your superstar about something. We're trying to run our organization like a family, and we're trying to love each other enough to tell each other what they need to hear. And when you're going to make changes to the family, I talk to a lot of members of the family, and when we made the trade that brought us J.R. Smith, I talked to Kyrie about it. Mike Miller was actually somebody who had some contact to the Knicks organization, and he was somebody we talked to because Mike's minutes were the ones that were going to be affected. We talked to Kevin. We talked to all those guys about a lot of different things. I don't talk to anybody about a player that'll go out because I don't think it's fair to put guys in that position. We ask them to love each other in there. I don't want them to decide who has to go away. But when you're going to bring something in, we talk to a lot of people. And LeBron is somebody that he's incredibly coachable because he wants to be coached. He's going to put you in position where he challenges you, and he wants to see you come back at him. He doesn't respect you if you don't do that. So if you're going to be like everybody else, you can't be part of being around LeBron because he wants to get something out of you as much as you want to get something out of him. He wants you to further him, and so he challenges everybody. He challenges our coaches, he challenges our players, he challenges our front office, and I think we've all responded fairly well to that. But when you challenge him back, the leader in him is what embraces, yeah, you know what? They're making me better. And that's, to me, that's been really gratifying in that relationship. He absolutely does not want to be the general manager. It bothers him that people say he is. This is not what he wants to do. He wants to play, and he wants to lead the troops. And he'll give input, but he's never made a demand. He doesn't stomp his foot. He doesn't do any of the things that people, I think, in the media world would like to think he does. What he does is he makes it clear he wants to win, and he challenges you to find a new way to do it. And we challenge him to find new ways to lead us on the floor. And it's been a great partnership in that way.
Is there anything he ever said that changed your mind, or a conversation you had that he made you know what, you're right, I'm going to do it this way?
Yeah, J.R. Smith, again, is a great example. And this has been written about before, I think. But LeBron knew that I had a real problem with the idea of bringing somebody in who maybe had some problems off the floor and somebody who had been a challenge at different points in their career. He knew I had some trepidation about J.R. And he told me, he said, listen. And by the way, that trade was, we got J.R. Smith. We got Iman Shumpert without giving up a first-round pick because we were willing to take J.R. Smith. So it was almost like he was the price of entry to getting Shumpert. So when I talked to LeBron about it, I told him the whole structure of the deal, and he said, listen, I can tell you're uneasy. He said, I've got this. Do this, and I'll take care of it.
He has taken care of J.R.
And he's absolutely taken care of it. And the environment that we've put him in, I think he responded to really well, and he's been unbelievable. J.R.'s just been an amazing part of what we do.
All right, Masai, I'll give you this one. How do you balance long-term team building, win-now transactions, and job security?
Oh, my job security? Yeah, I think that's honestly the way I look at this business is when I leave this job, you want to leave it the best possible way for the next person. You know, like just because of, I think, how great my owners are, how great the city of Toronto is, and the fans, and that organization. So everything we do, we really try to look at the future because are we where these guys are? No, we're not. You know, like these guys have won championships. You know, we're trying to win one, but I also have to look out for the organization, and that's why I can't trade picks as much as these guys do. In many ways. But I feel strongly about developing players. I want to develop young players, and we talk about how do you find these superstars. I think with the new CBA, it's going to be incredibly more difficult to trade for them in many ways, and we have to think about ways to find these guys, whether it's in the draft, whether it's this guy is doing an incredible job. He's talking about they didn't have a pick. They drafted Macau as one of the best young players in the I feel that was in the draft. Where did they find him? You know, like late in the draft, or you know, those are things that I think San Antonio does well. And you know,
DeJounte Murray might be another one.
Yeah, exactly. We have to do that. And but honestly, we're blessed to be doing what we're doing. There's only 30 jobs. You know, like. When I think of where I came from, and I'm here, like speaking in front of all these incredible people, job security never comes to my mind. You know, like I'm just blessed to be sitting right here and doing the job that I'm doing.
Let me just follow up. So you traded a protected pick for Ibaka. You've brought Ibaka on. It definitely fills a need for your team. He is a free agent at the end of this year. If he ends up being a rent-a-player, which I never really loved that term, but if he doesn't end up re-signing with you, how do you then look back on that transaction? Does it depend on how far he takes you and how much he helps you in the postseason?
One of the reasons we did something like that was because we had 2 picks, you know, and when you look at the picks and where they are, I think you measure that, you know. Knock wood, we continue to do how we're doing, and we had the Clipper pick. They will both hopefully be in the 20s, you know, like or late teens at worst, you know, and then we still have one of them, you know, which is something we don't regret. As I said, where these guys are with the Kyle, DeMar, I think the city of Toronto, the fans, the organization, the ownership, they deserve a chance, you know, like to have an Ibaka on our team and try it out and see. And when June comes, I always say with our problems, trust me, there are problems. As we're going back right now, we're checking our phones. There's a problem with our teams. It's constant within the NBA, you know, like so. You deal with it when it comes. That's why we're paid to do it. And I think we'll figure it out when June comes.
In today's world, Bob, is it possible to win a championship without a true superstar? That's really our last question, too, huh?
I mean, what was the last?
Detroit, maybe.
Yeah, so
the
it is.
Outlier. That was a while ago.
Well, I think Chauncey Billups was not given proper due. I would call.
You know what? Chauncey changed teams so frequently.
Yeah, but he was I mean, to me, he had like that Chris Paul, Lowry. I mean, he knew how to manage a game. And
he
so
was terrific. Rasheed Wallace was on that team.
And Rasheed Wallace was I mean, if he didn't get, for the talent level he had at that time, he had to be one of the 5 to 10 most talented players in the league. So, you know, what is a superstar? I mean, there's guys walking around that help you win games that don't have a shoe deal, that aren't in commercials, but I don't know, like the superstar thing, it's hard for me. Like Manu Ginobili does he have a shoe deal? It's not a big one.
Right.
That guy's unbelievable. I mean, his career, he should be called a superstar so much more than he has. I mean, what he did, and not just in a regular season, but in the playoffs and finals. So I don't know. Yeah, I mean, I guess I would argue you'd have to have a top 10 player in the league, which doesn't always align with a superstar. But to all these guys' points, superstars are made in many different ways. Superstars aren't, if you look at the superstars now, they're not all picked number 1 in the draft. You got guys picked 30, you got guys picked in the second round that are superstars, you got guys picked 10, 20. That's our job.
Is Draymond a superstar?
I don't know.
Yeah.
I like him on our team. I think he's good. I don't care. He helps us win. I mean, that's what we're looking for. I mean, I can tell you, we really don't, if you win, everything is okay. I mean, people come to the games. You know, people get, if you care about credit, you get credit, players get, coaches get it. We look at it, I look at it like, do you want that guy on your team or not? And what's his contract? And is he worth that contract? And he's going to help you win. So get enough of those guys, and you win, the media or people start calling the best player the superstar because you won. So I think you can, but realistically, without a top 10 player in the NBA, or maybe even top 5, I'm not an expert in this stuff. You got to have somebody pretty damn good to kind of lead the way.
All right, thank you very much.